Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have Grizzly Discoveries, Inc. It trades on the OTCQB under the symbol GZDIF and on the TSXV under the symbol GZD, and is a diversified Canadian mineral exploration company with its primary listing on the TSX Venture Exchange, focused on developing its approximately 66 hectares or 165,000 acres of precious and base metal properties in southeastern British Columbia. Please welcome the technical consultant and advisor, Mike Dufresne. Welcome, Mike. How you doing?
Excellent. Welcome, everybody.
Great. Take it away.
Okay, folks, I'm here to talk to you about Grizzly Discoveries and their projects in southeastern British Columbia, pretty much right up against the U.S. border. And I'm going to give you some updates of the work that we've been conducting this year. The obligatory forward-looking statements. Obviously, we're hoping to have success, but it's never guaranteed. This is the location of the project, southeastern BC. Precious metal and battery metal properties covering about, in total, 160,000 acres. Robocop is the one near Grasmere, BC, south of Fernie, and the Greenwood project is between Osoyoos and Grand Forks. That is our focus, Robocop, and then a number of showings within the Greenwood district, including Motherlode, Dayton, which is copper, cobalt, gold, silver, Midway, silver, gold, KEP 28, which is gold, Sappho, copper, gold, silver, platinum group elements, and the Copper Mountain, copper, gold. Management and directors, Brian Testo, long time since the inception of the company, has been the president and CEO since 2005. Dr. Sam Tollersdorf out of Toronto. Jim Gregg, who is part of a number of companies, including a number of companies with the Metals Group. Joe Price, a geologist, and has more than 20 to 30 years experience working out of Vancouver. I am the QP and consultant, and have worked for Grizzly since its inception. In terms of capital structure, just very briefly, as of the end of the third quarter 2022, 137 million shares out, fully diluted would be about 174 million, but that would also add about $2.5 million to Treasury. Current Treasury is at about 1.6 million, and that's after completion pretty much of our $1 million exploration program this year. We are still in the field, but nearing completion. Stock prices currently basically at a year high at about 11.5 to 12 cents, and has certainly come off bottom in late 2021 of 3 to 4 cents, market cap of about 15 million shares. Robocop property, there's not a lot new to report there. We're awaiting permits to conduct our drilling and some ground geophysics. It's about 10,000 acres, can be worked 270 days of the year. Excellent access, everything will be logging roads, no real need for a helicopter. It's right beside Highway 93, which goes down into Montana. This is the U.S. border. Down at the bottom of the slide there, there's available private hydropower, and it's in the Kootenays, which has 100 years of mining history. And there is certainly lots of exploration that's been done there historically and work that we did last year. You can see some of the numbers, 2.5% copper up to almost 0.5% cobalt, pretty significant copper cobalt. It's on a par with some of the numbers that you see out of Javois' Idaho Cobalt Project, which is in construction as an underground mine presently. There is some historic drilling, about 15 holes, and it's yielded up to greater than 1% copper and 0.15% cobalt over a couple of meters, which again is on par with some of the grades and intersections that you get out of Javois' Idaho Cobalt Project. The work we conducted in 2021 was an airborne survey, soil sampling, and this year we've planned a 1,000 to 2,000 meter core drilling program. We're currently awaiting permits. We're in consultation both with the government and First Nations, specifically the Tobacco Plains, and taking a little longer than we had hoped for, but as soon as we get our permits, we will be drilling. Historical work up to, as I mentioned, up to 1% copper and 0.14% cobalt over 2 meters in old drilling. We conducted some mapping and created geological models. The drilling is about 15 holes, 3 areas over about 1.1 kilometer strike length, done mostly in the 1990s with a few holes in 2008. It's sediment hosted, cobalt, copper, silver, and very similar, as I mentioned, to Gervais' Idaho Cobalt Project. Just to kind of give you a bit of a backdrop, as here's the Idaho Cobalt Project down in northern part of Idaho's south of the Montana border, right at the southern edge of the what we call the Belt-Purcell Basin. We're situated on the northeast corner in very similar rocks, very similar aged rocks. Stratigraphically, this is what we call a stratigraphic column. You can see Sullivan down at the bottom is the oldest, down in 1,800 million-year-old rocks. We're in 1,350 to 1,400 million-year-old rocks in the Shepherd, and that is very similar stratigraphy to the Gervais Idaho Cobalt Project. These things are hosted in sandstones and siltstones, and often encapsulated between basalts and volcanics. As I mentioned, trench results and historic drilling results with cobalt and copper. One of the things that we did to add value was fly an airborne survey. You can see on the right an image showing this, what we call a time domain geophysical survey, and all the little purple dots in the purple features on the mag map or on the EM map. You can see our conductivity anomalies. We also conducted a whole, quite a significant soil sampling program. We've extended this discovery area up to about 15 kilometers in strike length. So we completed the airborne, completed the soil sampling. We're just waiting to complete our EM survey and diamond drilling program. We had some new rock sample discoveries with up to 3.5% copper in some of these rocks. And again, this is about a 6.5 to 8 kilometer long soil trend here. And we're planning to drill about 10 holes into this. Here you can see where some of these new rock samples, 3.5%, 3.35% copper here, west of the discovery area, and another 1.4% copper number several kilometers to the southeast. And you can see some of what the rocks look like. So we have a number of strong untested copper cobalt anomalies. We've got a pending application waiting to drill anywhere from 5 to 10 holes. We will be conducting a EM survey. We have a new instrument called Loop EM that I'll talk a little bit about that we've been using in the Greenwood area, and we hope to conduct that survey here before the end of the year. I'm going to move on to the Greenwood area and the potential for battery and precious metals and the work that we've been doing there. This is where most of our work has been focused this year. It's about a 60 to 70 kilometer long district right along the U.S. border between Grand Forks on the right. You can see the yellow dot, Losoyos on the left. This is a very regional geology map that outlines a number of what we call grabens, tertiary grabens, which are down-drop rocks back 50 million years ago. The blue is Paleozoic rocks, so old 300 to 250 million year old rocks. The yellow are 50 million year old, predominantly volcanics, with some sediments that filled these basins as they downdropped. They are now being what we call eroded and unroofed. And you can see a number of occurrences in green here that are often a number of mines that are associated with the edges of these grabens. These fault controls are very important. The Buckhorn mine is in the Chirota Graben. The Old Republic and Knob Hill mine, the Golden Eagle deposit that Caliber is playing around with, is on the west side of the Republic Graben. And these grabens all extend up into the Greenwood district. Grizzly has about 150,000 acres highlighted in pink here, with a number of showings distributed well across the entire package. Location of Kinross's Buckhorn mine just south of the border, and the processing plant, the Kettle River processing plant, Caliber's Golden Eagle mine to the south, about 50 kilometers south of the border. There's a number of companies that have been working. Atamera has had pretty extensive exploration going on in the Republic Graben. Caliber's done some drilling this year. And a number of companies on the Canadian side, CanX Gold, formerly Golden Dawn, has been doing some drilling in the Phoenix area, and Belmont Resources in the Lone Star area. The district has produced more than 7 million ounces of gold collectively. And our property is only 13 kilometers from Kinross's 1.2 million ounce Buckhorn gold and 50 kilometers from the 2 million ounce resource that's sitting at Calibre Gold's project. Deposit types and conceptual targets for those of you who are more technically minded. Copper gold skarns is the most predominant target that we explore for in the area. And the Phoenix pit, the Phoenix mine is probably the best example of that. Produced over 1 million ounces of gold, 6 million ounces of silver, 520 million pounds of copper. And importantly, at today's prices, almost $4 billion worth of value that was produced out of that pit and underground mine. There is significant production that is associated with epithermal gold silver veins, predominantly down in the Republic area, but also to a degree up on the Greenwood side as well. There are well-known gold, copper, silver sulfide bodies, often associated and called the Rosslyn type, and there's porphyry potential. I think there's tremendous porphyry potential: copper, gold, silver, and platinum group metals associated with alkalic porphyries. This is the area, and all these purple circles are areas that we've been working in this season since about May, and are still conducting work right across this 60, 70 kilometer expanse of mineral claims that we have in blue and purple. Primarily, we've collected 2,000 soil samples, about 1,000 rock samples. We've conducted about 200 line kilometers of ground geophysics, mostly magnetometer, who are now starting to do this new instrument loop survey. And we've conducted about 15 core holes of 3,100 meters of drilling at Dayton, which is highlighted on the left, and at Mother Lode North, which is highlighted in the northeast portion of the claim block there. Mother Lode North is a historic area of production. Was first staked and explored in 1891 before BC was even a province. Commercial production commenced in 1901. It closed in 1990 to decreasing grades. There's been a number of companies that have worked this thing. It was put back into production in 1956 and produced into the early 1960s. Since the 1960s, there's been a number of companies that have explored the Mother Lode area up until the late 1990s, and then really nothing's happened in the last 25 years, except for the work that Grizzly's conducted. Grizzly has what we call the Mother Lode North. We conducted some drilling in 2011, 6 holes. 2 of those holes at some pretty interesting intersections: 1.5 grams gold, 3 grams silver across almost 15 meters in hole 5, and 6 grams of gold and 15 grams silver across 4.5 meters in hole 3. Which was about 500 meters north of this pit that you can see in the photo, which is the actual Mother Lode pit. There is potential for more mineralization around the Mother Lode pit. We've been waiting for Crown grants to expire there so we can do some work. There's historic production, about 173,000 ounces, 77 million pounds of copper came out of the Mother Lode pit. And underground, you can see here, this is what the skarn looks like. It's a magnetite chalcopyrite skarn in bluey gray color as magnetite. You can see some yellowy tarnished mineralogy in the photo that is predominantly chalcopyrite in a quartz carbonate gang and what we call a skarn. You can see the edge of the Mother Lode pit right at the south end of the map slide. You can see some geochemistry at the north end of the pit and the blue crown grants that cover that pit. Our drilling was done up to the north, and we had a number of planned holes, which we have this year now drilled. The actual drill holes are in purple here, magenta. We've conducted 11 holes and 2,100 meters of drilling. We drilled 9 holes at Mother Lode North. We drilled 2 holes at the Marguerite area, Great Hopes area. And you can see we've intersected skarn in several of the holes, and we're awaiting assays. That stuff has been shipped off now to the Saskatchewan Research Council for assays. Here's some of the historic drill results. Hole 11, as I mentioned before, 6 grams gold, 15 grams silver over 4.5 meters core length. There's a little bit of lead, zinc, and copper kicking around in some of those holes. Hole 5 here, 1.6 grams, 3 grams silver, 1.6 grams gold over almost 15 meters in some of that drilling. Here are the Crown grants here. There's a forfeiture notice that has happened. We were waiting for these Crown grants to expire. It was held by a company that went into bankruptcy, and we have the claims over top of most of the Mother Lode area and Great Hopes area. And as soon as these claims forfeit, the mineral rights will revert to Grizzly Discoveries. Shifting over to more towards the Osoyoos area, the edge of the west edge of the Rock Creek Graben. We're in the Dayton area here. We did some drilling there in 2010, 2011. It was based on this ovoid northwest trending feature. You can see a very strong copper gold soil anomaly that was well known and defined by our soil sampling back in 2010. It's not far from Mount McKinney, where hard rock gold was first discovered in the 1880s in the Greenwood district. Our drilling was based on a couple of IP anomalies. We had a main IP anomaly associated with the gold and copper soil geochem. We drilled roughly 10 holes into that. We drilled one hole into a secondary IP anomaly out to the east. And that was our most successful hole, and we've never followed it up. So this year, we have basically reinterpreted this IP anomaly that had the one drill hole. That one drill hole from surface had essentially 0.4% copper equivalent over 51 meters, and it's a combination of gold and silver, as you can see in the table below. The couple of the holes in the main IP anomaly hit some anomalous and interesting gold, silver, copper, but not really economic type grades, and was really restricted to surface, and the deeper holes didn't continue the mineralization. This is our drilling, so there's the holes that we drilled in 2010-11. We drilled the one hole here that had 0.4% copper equivalent over 54 meters in a 2010 drill hole, and this purple shape is the IP chargeability anomaly, and we drilled another 4 holes for about 1,000 meters into this target, and we're just awaiting assay results. Quite a bit of sulfide intersected in those holes, but we're waiting for the assay results. In terms of other exploration, we've all these purple things, all these purple circles and ovoids are areas we've conducted new exploration this year. The 2022 exploration program has been quite extensive, prospecting, rock sampling, soil sampling, ground geophysics at a number of targets. Some of them new to bring a number of these targets up to potential drilling stage. We've got this includes a new historical Midway mine, Sappho, Copper Mountain, Overlander, Mother Lode area, Ket 28, and a couple other showings that we've never done much work on, including the Imperial and Crown Point. You can see some of the mineralization in these photos of Midway vein, where we announced some pretty high-grade gold and copper. You can see up to upwards of 2,000 grams per ton silver and 70 grams per ton gold in grab samples. This is the vein in a little old pit that was done in the 1980s. You can see some selective grab samples at Sappho in the upper 2 photos with visible copper mineralization, upwards of 8% copper, and a lot of samples of greater than 1 gram per ton gold and platinum and palladium, including 1 to 2 grams platinum palladium. The Overlander is another target that's more in the east of Greenwood and in the area of the Lexington mine and Golden Crown mine that Old Golden Dawn has been doing quite a bit of work around. And we've got a number of selective samples with greater than 10 grams per ton gold. And these are classic epithermal quartz veins. We have commenced some ground geophysics, and perhaps, Ryan, if you could pop up the short video just to show you what it looks like. It's a new system out of Australia that we're using to evaluate some of these targets. Okay, so that was just an example. It's a loop EM survey that comes out of Australia, quite an expensive system. It does continuous time domain EM measurements, much like the old horizontal loop system, but a much improved system because it's time domain and continuous measurements, as opposed to the old horizontal loop, which was a frequency domain, and you had to press buttons and stop every station. And we've had a lot of success with this during this calendar year here, and we've got several surveys planned in the Greenwood district. So that pretty much wraps up the presentation. We've spent use of proceeds for 2022. We've spent about $800,000 drilling at Motherlode and Dayton, 3,100 meters. We've conducted significant groundwork to the tune of about $500,000. And we are planning some pretty aggressive programs for next year. We think the project is a fantastic project, and Grizzly's got a lot of opportunities here, from the Motherlode to the Sappho to the Robocop project. We have lots of potential for new discoveries with 160,000 acres of prospective land. And I will finish there and open it up for questions.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Okay. We do have some questions for you from Mike G. What's your current burn, and what are you doing to raise that and fund it?
Yeah, so I can, look, I'm not part of the corporate team with Grizzly, but they're in pretty good shape with $1.6 million still left in treasury. I think their burn is on the order of, really nobody takes any significant salaries out of Grizzly. Their burn is on the order of $250,000 to $350,000 a year. So they're well financed in terms of their corporate overheads. They are planning, certainly coincident with some results that come out over the next month or two. I'm sure they will be planning to finance, do additional financings. But right now, most of their warrants and options are in the money, and that alone could provide an extra $2.5 million.
Great. Jim Cunningham wants to know, when do you expect the permits for Robocop to come in? And from there, what's next?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. We were expecting them this summer. They've gone for consultation with the First Nations. We've had a couple of meetings with the First Nations. I think we have one more left with the government and First Nations. My expectation is I'm hoping that we get these permits in the next month, but it could take as long as to the end of the year. And that obviously we were hoping to be drilling in September, October. That's going to push our drilling back to next spring. So that's kind of what's next. We're waiting for, on the Greenwood side, we're waiting for results from all of our drilling, 3/4, basically all our soil sampling, and 3/4 of our rock samples. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak, and those results will be coming out steadily here over the next 2 months.
Great. Charles Hubbard has a small speculative position in your company, and the stock has held up well, considering everything. What does he need to do to look for to see the investment start to de-risk in terms of milestones?
Yeah, look, milestones for us is to get our drilling done at Robocop and evaluate whether that has resource potential. Also, the drilling that we've just done at Motherlode North and Dayton, we're looking for some decent results there. If there's decent results, we'll need another phase of drilling and hopefully take one or both of those things to a resource stage. Really, we're still at the beginning of the high risk stage, high reward stage. We have not de-risked this until we start to actually identify some resources.
Mike, do you have a production timeline? Chris Herrera wants to know that. And if not, just give us a 24-month plan.
Yeah, sure. We are quite a ways from production. The benefits in this part of the world is we have road access, we have power, we have gas through all the properties. The other excellent part of being in the Greenwood district is we have two mills that are available. If we wanted to custom mill, that's the Golden Crown mill that Canex Gold or the old Golden Dawn owned, and the Kettle River mill down in Republic. So we have access. The infrastructure is fantastic. We need to identify some resources, even small resources. That's the benefit here. We're looking for big targets, but even small resources here, we could look at small mine production and use one of these two mills. In terms of the next 24 months, significant drilling campaign, continued drilling campaigns, and hopefully getting to a target that we can identify a resource and drill out.
Last question for you, Mike, from John Dunn. If you can talk about the infrastructure, you mentioned that it's off the main highway, but are all the locations production ready?
I would say yes, from an infrastructure point of view. You have power, we have gas lines, and we have a huge amount of logging road network that allows, if we find something and can get it to a resource stage, and maybe a preliminary economic assessment stage quickly, I think it can be permitted and put into production with extremely cheap front-end costs.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mike, and please come back again with some updates. So good luck with all of this.
Thank you very much.
All right. Everyone stay with us. We'll be right back.
Bye now.